Just as Chioma's glowing hands touched the triplets, she felt an overwhelming force push back. The room grew cold, unnaturally cold. The light in her hands flickered, and a dark, ominous energy swirled around the children, stronger than she had anticipated. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Ade, the ghost, appeared beside her, his expression more serious than ever before. "Chioma, stop," he shouted, his voice urgent. "You don't know what you're dealing with. This curse, it's not just a simple hex. There's something far more dangerous here." Chioma's heart raced. What had she awakened? Suddenly, a deep, chilling voice echoed through the room, sending shivers down Chioma's spine. "You dare interfere with what has been sealed," the voice hissed. "These children were never meant to be saved." The shadows twisted, and from the darkness, a figure began to emerge, something ancient and terrifying. Before Chioma could react, the curse fought back with fury. The triplets screamed in unison, their small bodies convulsing as the dark energy began to consume them. Chioma's powers were strong, but this force was something else entirely, something ancient and vengeful. Her mind raced. Had she made a terrible mistake? Chioma's strength was failing. She could feel the dark energy consuming everything, including herself. Aid's voice echoed in her mind, "There's still time to stop. But if you go further, there's no turning back." Chioma stood at the edge of an impossible choice: save the children and risk unleashing something far worse, or let them perish under the weight of the curse. Time was running out. Chioma closed her eyes, her decision made. But just as she raised her hands to try again, the ground beneath her trembled. A crack split through the floor, and from the depths, a horrifying scream erupted. Chioma froze, her eyes wide in terror as the dark force burst forth, more powerful than anything she had ever felt. The air filled with chaos, and then, everything went black. In the silence that followed, only one question remained: what had Chioma unleashed? As the dust settled, a pair of glowing eyes appeared from the shadows. A new presence had awakened. And it was hungry. The room was silent, but it wasn't the peaceful kind of silence. It was the calm that came after a storm had wreaked havoc. Chioma stood motionless, her breath shallow. Around her, the debris of shattered furniture, broken glass, and darkness loomed like a heavy fog. She stared at the ground where the crack had opened, now sealed as if it had never existed. But something had changed. Chioma could feel it. Ade appeared beside her, his form flickering faintly. "Chioma," he whispered, his voice carrying a weight she hadn't heard before. "We've made a mistake." Chioma looked up at him, her voice trembling. What was that? What did I unleash?" Aid's ghostly form darkened slightly, and he replied, "Not what? Who?" Chioma felt a cold chill run down her spine. A voice echoed in her mind, not her own. "You've unlocked me," it said. "You brought me back, and now there will be no peace." Chioma's heart raced. She clutched her chest, feeling the energy of something sinister swelling inside her. Whatever she had awoken wasn't just a curse. It was a malevolent force older than the village itself. The triplets lay unconscious on the bed, but their bodies no longer convulsed. Chioma cautiously approached them, her hands trembling. Were they safe now? As she reached out, their eyes snapped open, glowing with a dull, eerie light. Chioma stumbled back. The children were no longer just cast, they were vessels for something far more terrifying. Outside the small room, the village had already begun to feel the effects of Chioma's actions. The skies over the village darkened unnaturally, and the winds howled through the streets. Elders stood in fear, sensing a shift they hadn't felt in generations. "The spirits are restless," they muttered. The darkness has returned. Ade's ghostly figure hovered near Chioma. I should have told you sooner, he confessed. The curse on Adekunle and Bola's children is connected to an ancient spirit, one the village thought they had sealed long ago. But by trying to save them, you've broken the seal. Chioma stared at him in disbelief. You mean I've unleashed this ancient evil? Ode nodded. And it's not just the children who are in danger. The entire village is. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the room. The air grew thick with an oppressive energy. Chioma's pulse quickened as the shadows in the corner of the room began to twist and form. From the darkness emerged a figure, tall and twisted, its eyes glowing with hatred. The ancient spirit had finally manifested, drawn to Chioma's power and the curse she had tried to break. The spirit spoke, its voice deep and hollow. These children are mine now, it growled, and the village will pay for sealing me away. Chioma felt her knees weaken as the spirit's words reverberated in her bones. But she wasn't ready to give up. She clenched her fist, the faint light of her newfound powers flickering to life. You don't belong here, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I'll stop you. The spirit laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the walls. You think you can stop me, it sneered. But Chioma didn't flinch. She reached deep within herself, summoning the strength that Ode had given her. Light poured from her hands, pushing against the darkness. The spirit recoiled slightly, but its grin remained. This is just the beginning, it whispered, before disappearing into the shadows once more, leaving Chioma breathless and exhausted. Chioma collapsed to her knees, her powers drained. Ode appeared beside her, his face full of concern. It's not over, he whispered. The spirit has retreated, but it will be back. Stronger. Chioma looked up, her face filled with determination. Then I'll be ready, she said. But deep down, she wasn't sure. The spirit's words echoed in her mind, and for the first time, she wondered if she had made a mistake by staying. As the village trembled under the spirit's influence, a storm brewed on the horizon. From the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes watched her every move. The spirit was waiting for the right moment to strike again. The sky over the village had grown darker than anyone had ever seen. Thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, and the air was thick with the scent of rain and something far more sinister. Chioma stood outside Adekunle and Bola's house, watching the horizon, her mind racing. The spirit was coming back, stronger, more determined. But she was ready, or so she thought. Inside the house, Adekunle and Bola sat huddled with their cursed children. The once lively triplets now sat still, their eyes lifeless, the curse still holding them in its grip. The villagers whispered outside, their fear palpable. Something terrible is coming, an elder muttered, his voice shaky. They had all seen the signs, the animals behaving strangely, crops wilting under the storm, and the oppressive darkness that loomed over them. Suddenly, the storm broke. A violent gust of wind tore through the village, and from the shadows, the spirit emerged. Its form was even darker, larger, and more menacing than before, its eyes burning with rage. The spirit hovered over the village like a predator ready to strike. Chioma felt the weight of its presence pressing down on her. It wasn't just here for the children anymore, it wanted the entire village. Chioma stepped forward, her heart pounding. She felt Ade's ghostly presence beside her. This is your fight now, he said, his voice calm but firm. You have the power to stop it. Chioma took a deep breath, summoning the light within her once again. I'm not afraid of you, she called out to the spirit, her voice echoing across the village. The spirit's eyes locked onto her, and it let out a low, menacing laugh. The spirit surged forward, its dark energy crashing against Chioma like a wave. She braced herself, pushing back with the light that had grown inside her. The two forces collided, light against darkness, filling the air with a crackling energy that seemed to tear at the very fabric of reality. Villagers watched in awe and fear as the battle raged before them. The spirit roared in fury as Chioma's light pushed back against it. But it wasn't giving up. The spirit lashed out with a violent burst of dark energy, sending Chioma stumbling backward. The ground beneath her feet cracked, and the wind howled around them. "You cannot defeat me," the spirit hissed. "I am eternal." Chioma's breath was ragged, but she refused to back down. "No, you're just a shadow of what you once were," she replied, her voice filled with newfound strength. Inside the house, Bola watched in terror as Chioma fought to save them. She clutched her cursed children, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Chioma," she whispered. "Please save them." Adikanle stood beside her, his face pale. He had once been proud, arrogant even, but now he was just a broken man, desperate for hope. Chioma could feel their desperation. It gave her the strength to rise again. Chioma closed her eyes, focusing on the light within her. Ade's words echoed in her mind. "You have the power." Slowly, the light in her hands grew brighter, stronger, until it engulfed her entire body. The spirit paused, sensing the change. Chioma opened her eyes, and they glowed with a brilliant light. "You will not take them," she said, her voice steady and unwavering. "This ends now." Chioma stepped forward, her light growing stronger with every step. The spirit recoiled, its form beginning to flicker and fade. "No," it screamed, its voice full of rage and fear. But Chioma kept moving, the light pouring from her like a flood. "This is for the village," she said softly. "For the children. For me." And with one final burst of energy, the spirit shattered into 1,000 pieces, dissolving into the air like dust. The storm cleared, the sky slowly lightening as the dark clouds began to fade. Chioma stood in the middle of the village, her energy spent, but victorious. The villagers gathered around her, their faces a mix of awe and gratitude. Ade's ghost appeared beside her once more, his form now fainter than ever. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved them." Chioma looked down at the ground, where the spirit had once stood. But as she turned to thank Ode, he was gone. But as the villagers celebrated, Chioma couldn't shake the feeling that something still lingered in the air, something unresolved. Was the spirit truly gone? Or had it left something behind? Chioma's journey wasn't over yet. Chioma had won the battle, but the war for her soul had only just begun.